law is mentioned, even a even a layman should know that when you talk of banking law is talking about those laws that are guiding the banks. Those laws are guiding the banks and transaction. Every transaction that is done is what we are talking about. Once banking law is said, you should know that it's talking about those laws, acts that establish the bank, that guides the bank, those things you should do and those things you should not do in the bank. Though it depends from different jurisdiction, like here in Nigeria, the method we use here that banking law is exclusive is contained in exclusive list according to Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. It is only exclusive list. Exclusive list means that it is only federal can enact on it. State cannot enact on it. But if you look at if you look at country like America, America does it in a way that it will be enacted by the state and the federal. That means exclusive and concurrent. So here let me acknowledge my colleague. Like first of all, the chairman of this organization, Chief Barrister Tiku Jaffa, the trustee of the organization, which is a Prince. Then, if you talk of about these people again, people who are involved in this, our facilitators, with other people, I may not mention other of our ambassadors. They are all great people. So let me continue my lecture. General introduction. In general introduction, I've already introduced the whole course entirely, what banking law is all about. Then I want to start from the general introduction, what banking law is talking about in general introduction. No more the general, no more the introduction of the banking law, which is the banking law is a broad term for laws that govern how banks and other financial institutions conduct business. Banks must comply with a myriad of federal, state, and even the local regulation. Lawyers play a variety of role in creating, complying with, and enforcing regulations. Especially in as far as I'm concerned, especially in Nigeria or in Africa as a whole, they are not trying in banking law. There are a lot of intimidations. I've I've tried correcting some as one of as someone that loves banking law. The history of the history of Nigerian banks that makes up the banking system that exists today can be traced back to the colonial government. The colonial government has not adopted it to build an existing local banking system or similar system. This is because the rise of colonialists has made it necessary to increase British silver coin imports as trade relations between Britain and the West African coast growth. 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 Originally, the only shipping company was Eda Dempster and Companies Lagos. And the company's Lagos office increased the number of silver coins in large buses, so it was proposed to set up a bank in Lagos that will issue silver coins to Nigerian citizens. This bank was established in office was in Lagos. The objective. At the end of this unit, at the end of this unit, you expected to know the definition terms and abbreviation of every words used here. You expected to know the why do banking laws exist. You expected to know what do banking laws regulate. You expected to know where do banking lawyers work. You expected to know private sector, you're expected to know why practice banking law. You're expected to know the challenges. You're expected to know geographical diversity. You're expected to know banking laws. Banking law is diverse and you're expected to know banking law is diverse and existing is diverse and its existence. You're expected to know bank. You are expected to know bank customer. You are expected to know laws regulating the establishment of banks in Nigeria. You're expected to know campaigning law, which is one of the acts or law that regulates banks in Nigeria. You're expected to know Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act, which is called BOFIA in abbreviation, is one of the regulatory the laws that are regulating the banks in Nigeria. Then finally, Central Bank of Nigeria Act. Central Bank of Nigeria Act is one of the laws that are regulating the banks in Nigeria. Then in your own country, we still have other laws like this. This is just like a sample, and for you to know that there is a law on or act that regulates banking. Then you are expected to know rights of the bank, rights of the customers, duties of bank, duties of customers, the guidelines, ATM deployment. ATM, the acronym ATM means automated teller machine. ATM operations, ATM maintenance, ATM security, dispute resolution. In case if there is any problem, how it will be resoluted. You are expected to know the dispute resolution. You are expected to know liability shifts, regulatory monitoring, penalties, and we concluded and summarize our material. Then herein, the second one according to the order of preference is terms, definition of terms and abbreviation. We stated what definition is like BOFIA, banks and other financial institutions, CBN, Central Bank of Nigeria, etc. Let's move to the next line. Why do banking laws exist? As the world economy expanded in the 21st century, lawmakers became concerned about the impact of banks on the economy. They argue that if banks struggle, the impact will spread to consumers and the general public. Legislators create banking regulations to ensure that banks enforce their regulations fairly and transparently. Banking regulations change frequently and are controversial. For instance, I want to use Nigeria as a case study. There was a time in Nigeria, people were even using banks to do 419. 419 means fraud. Then in Nigeria, you see a bank may open today, after some months or some years, the bank will liquidate. And the once bank is closed down, people's money will go. This is what we kept on having for many years in Nigeria until the time of Professor Soludo. It was when Professor Soludo became the governor of CBN that nonsense stopped. They could not use it again against the individuals. People were very mad. The only people who were doing them was that they're only skeptical in opening accounts. Some of them were even doing these pigeonhole accounts or putting in their houses. Some of them will now go to the extent of maybe banking with, because we still have what is called government bank. They will only be banking with government bank because they're afraid of bank liquidating. Then their money will go away. This is the stages that banking law might have gone, especially in Nigeria. I know it's like that in Cameroon. When I heard a lecture in respect of legal assessment of banks. So when I was discussing with them, when I was doing my research, I noticed it was like that. They are even still suffering in respect of ATM to date. I received a lot of questions in respect of ATM in Cameroon. So I was trying to encourage them that it will be like that. There was time ATM was like that in Nigeria. ATM messed many people up. I'm one of the witnesses. There was time I went to withdraw money. ATM seized my money. When I went inside the bank to saying it, they thought that I was just joking or I came to defraud them. It was when they noticed that it was real. That was the time they now started paying people. There's a lot of issues in banking system. But the only thing that I'm trying to let everyone know that once there is banking, once there is any new thing, there is stages. The thing has to go from stage 1 to stage 2, from stage 2 to stage 3. So the team moves from stages. This is what I advise Cameroonians. What do banking law regulate? Banking laws may exist in order to achieve many objectives. Some of these objectives include increase consumer transparency, banking law, and convey its position to lawmakers. They are also advocating changes in banking law that they deem necessary. Then the next one to discuss is where do banking lawyers work? I know when this topic we introduce to you, you'll be thinking, I think they work in the bank or this thing. Today we shall discuss them briefly. Banking lawyers are the lawyers that always advise the bankers for the issue of them having issues. Like there's a recent case in Anambra High Court by Honorable Justice Dimba. The case is the case of federal government enacted a law, and the case is case of bank versus what is it called? Bank versus Ifediora. The federal government enacted a law, and it states that the law should not be applied to every state. That law should be applied to some of the states like Abuja in Nigeria, Lagos, Anambra, etc. So the learned Sikh went to the bank to deposit some amount of money. So he was told to pay some amount of money. That if the money was not paid, that he will not be allowed to deposit, or they would deduct it or minus it from his money. So the learned Sikh was mad and said he cannot, so that he has not heard of this kind of thing. That he want to understand what they are saying. So that was what brought this. The learned Sikh insists that he will sue the bank. So he sued the bank versus he sued the bank, and he linked them with the CBN. So the case started in the High Court, Oka to be precise. This thing happened in Oka to be precise. It was the High Court sitting at Oka. So the judge, the learned Sikh, I love the learned Sikh decision. Once the case was provided once the case was presented before him, he looked at the case. He went home for research. After every research, he said that as far as he's concerned, that this is against the law, because the learned Sikh raised some issues. He raised some issues, even issues against fundamental human rights, as it is enshrined in Chapter 4 of 1999 Constitution, discrimination to be precise. The learned Sikh raised another issue, saying that this is to defraud the public, that there's no way that someone will be paying again after paying his own tax, that this is not tax. How can you be paying some amount of money? And as a matter of fact, this issue, I've raised this issue when I went to a meeting, a national youth meeting, and one of the directors, when I went there to meet, I raised this issue. I've known that this kind of issue will come out. So the learned Sikh said that as far as it's concerned, that they have to stop that payment. I don't know if they have obeyed This is Nigeria. In Nigeria, a court will issue a judgment, they may not obey it. That's one of the problems we're having in Africa. But the court has already said that they should stop that payment. They should stop collecting such payment or minusing it from customers, because it's against the law until they solve themselves. That he doesn't see the reason why that Nigerians will be suffering, and instead of federal government to encourage them, they will be removing money or still taking money. And the learned Sikh equally raised the issue of CBN, the powers of CBN, which is just to regulate, not to collect money from citizens. I urge everyone in this house to make out time and read the case. Then the next topic is government employment. Banks lawyers work in a variety of employers and specific discipline. In addition to lobbying financial institutions, you can work to make a law for the legislature. In addition, the government agencies that oversee banks need lawyers to oversee compliance and take enforcement action against alleged violators. private sector. Bank lawyers are also active in the private sector. Bank bank regulations are numerous and complex. All banks, even if they are not very large, require a dictated legal team to interpret it, control, and fully comply with the law, with banking law. Because a lot of people are illiterate, especially in our Africa. We have more people who are illiterate, especially in banking law, more than even some lawyers. There was a time I was with a senior colleague that I wouldn't mention the name. So there's some both of us went to bank. So there's some ignorance he performed. So I told him. He said he didn't know. So I educated him on that. He now said no problem. So many people are not even aware of banking law. Yes. That's one of the things I always say we should be acquainted with banking law because bankers are something else. When I dedicated interest in this banking law, when I did the research in criminality in banking sector, I met a lot of criminality in banking sector. That was the time I developed interest in banking law. Here in United States shall be used. We are discussing why practicing banking law. Here in United States shall be used as a case study to discuss this subheading and to let the readers and students to know that no country without challenge, Nigeria and other countries inclusive. American banking law is not as nationally federalized as other developed countries. In many developed countries, all banking regulations are handled at the national level. But in the United States, banking regulations and their enforcement can come from national, states, even local governments. That is true federalism. This makes banking law a challenge for all banking attorneys, regardless of employer, whether they enforce banking regulations or enforce compliance procedures. Expert Area Banking Act is suitable subject for lawyers with a high level of retention, information, information tracking. If you enjoy reading technical information, banking law is a habit you may like. Given the sheer volume of banking law in the United States, banking law is an area for people who can quickly process and analyze large amounts of information. Multiple multiple personality types may enjoy banking law. Banking lawyers can file proceedings as needed, but banking lawyers do not have to go to formal proceedings. Frequently in compliance position, I often work. This makes banking law a viable option for lawyers who do not necessarily enjoy formal courtroom. We are in geographical diversity. There are banks of various sizes in the United States, and the bank lawyers can live anywhere in the country. The banking industry is area for lawyers who may want to change jobs, as every bank needs a compliance officer, and there are great opportunity in both the government and the private sectors. Opportunity for horizontal and vertical career jumps are plenty in the profession. Banking law is diverse and existing. Banking Act practices are widespread and diverse at the same time. There are thousands of regulations out there. Banks need to start thinking about how to apply them. Whether creating, enforcing, or enforcing violation, there is a wide range of options available to individuals working in this area. Bank lawyers can expect business areas to evolve as banking regulations grow and change. Banks. When bank is said, what do you think? According to Section 66 of BOFIA, which is Banking and Other Financial Institutes Act 2004, define a commercial bank as a Nigerian bank that accepts deposits and withdraw by check, and define as and define a banking system as a bank that accepts deposits in accounts and provides financial advice. It is equal defined. This is definition of trade bank versus Barrelos. I have to briefly explain the Trade Bank PLC versus Barbados. Trade Bank PLC versus Barbados. This case started from High Court to Federal High Court. It is a case where then Nigerian bankers or Nigerian banks believe that the relationship between banks and customers are below and belly. It was in this case of Trade Bank PLC versus Barbados Nigeria Limited that Supreme Court of Nigeria held that the relationship between banks and customer is principal and agent. What is principal and what is agent? It means that you customer is the principal, while banks is your agent. And the case equally stated, or the Supreme Court stated that once you are writing maybe a check or even using your ATM to withdraw money, you are commanding the bank to give you your money back. You are not begging them, and you're not belling your money because it is your money, it belongs to you. It is your right to take your money anytime you want it. Bank customer. There is no legal definition of what a bank customer is. The most important prerequisite for becoming a bank customer is an account, regardless of the type of account, savings, deposit, or current account, as long as account is in his name. That is what qualifies you to be a bank customer. See the case of UBN PLC versus ITPP Limited 200. Laws regulating the establishment of banks in Nigeria. Companies and Alien Matters Act. BOFIA. CAMA, that's the abbreviation of Companies and Alien Matters Act. BOFIA, Banking and Other Financial Institutes. And the CBN Act. They are the three banks who regulate banking system in Nigeria. The rights of the banks to charge reasonable interest of credit facility granted to the customer and reasonable commission for some other services rendered, to obtain reimbursement from the customer in respect of expenses incurred on the customer's behalf. Example, where a bank issues a mortgage property on behalf of the customer, to exercise the right of set off as may be to his advantage and as may be permitted by law and by banking practice, to use money deposited by customers without recourse to or prior approval from the customer, to close the accounts after giving reasonable notice, to recall overdrafts permitted on current accounts when circumstances are such that it is best course of action, and to expect immediate payment from the customer, to exercise the right of lien on his customer's property in his possession, provided that there is an agreement that is inconsistent with lien, to refuse payments of any check or other payments, others not property drawn, and even if property drawn, to refuse payment if there is any legal bar towards payment towards payment, whether or not the customer is aware or whether funds in his account are insufficient. Rights of customers. To deposit or pay in cash, checks, and other payable instruments to his account. To get payment upon the customer's written request, either to himself or to a named beneficiary, provided the account is in fund or credit arrangement has already been agreed. To have his account conducted in a good condition of secrecy, to be given reasonable notice before his account could be closed, to be notified as any suspicious adverse event on his account, to be furnished with the statement of account regularly or upon request. So if your bank is not doing aforementioned, know that your bank is breaching your right as a customer. Duties of bank: to collect cash, checked, and the payable instrument deposited by its customer. CDK versus ACB Limited 20. Nigerian Western Law Report. To abide by the customer's written mandate, provided the account is in fund or credit arrangement has already been agreed. UBN versus Moye. The mandate is regularly drawn and there is no legal impediment towards the repayment. To give reasonable notice before closing accounts, to provide the customer with statements of account regularly or upon request, to draw the customer's attention to any suspicious adverse or other circumstances as may be prudent to bring to the customer's attention to as to forestall forgery or any unauthorized dealing by third party. Duties of the customers: to give written instruction to the bank if he sees to withdraw his money. Such instruction usually include check, standing order, direct debit, ATM, etc. To inform the bank without delay of any suspicious dealing of his account as may come to his knowledge. Example, loss of check, leaf, or checkbook, forgery of his signature, or loss of ATM, etc. To draw a check with care and diligence and in a manner that will not facilitate fraud, forgery, or unauthorized alteration. To pay reasonable commission and interest on borrowed funds as agreed. To repay overdraft on demand and to repay loan and other facilities as agreed. To ensure that his account is in fund or credit arrangement made to meet checks and other payment instrument issued. The guidelines were in ATM. The meaning of ATM is automated teller machine. The guidelines, this is CBN guideline in respect of ATM. All ATM consortia may own ATMs. However, such institution must enter into an agreement with a card scheme or a scheme operator or their designated settlement agent for acceptance and settlement of all the transactions at the ATM. Banks shall only deploy ATM within their premises, while the deployment of ATM outside bank premises should be left to CBN approved consortia, provided that no card scheme or any company that a card scheme has shared holding or ownership of more than 20% will be licensed as ATM owner or acquirer. All ATM transaction in Nigeria shall be processed by a Nigerian company operating in Nigeria as acquirer processor. No card or payment scheme or card association shall compel any issuer or acquirer to send any transaction outside Nigeria for purpose of processing, authorization, or switch if done is no card or payment scheme or card association shall compel any issuer or acquirer to send any transaction outside Nigeria for purpose of processing, authorization, or switching if the transaction is an ATM or at any acceptance device in Nigeria and the issuer is a Nigerian bank or any other issuer licensed by the CBN. Or transactions at an ATM in Nigeria shall, where the issuer is as a Nigerian bank or any other issuer licensed by CBN, be settled under a domestic settlement arrangement operated by a Nigerian company. No card scheme shall discriminate against any ATM owner or acquirer. No ATM owner or acquirer shall discriminate against any card scheme or issuer. Standalone or closed ATM are not allowed. ATMs shall be situated in such a manner as to permit access at reasonable times. Lighting should be adequate for safe access and good visibility. It should provide a consistent distribution and level of illumination, particularly in absence of natural light. ATM should be sited in such a way that direct or reflected sunlight or other bright lighting is prevented from striking the ATM display. For example, through the use of overhead some shelter. Privacy shall be provided by design and installation. The card does not have to conspicuously take any protective action. ATM operations. A bank or independent organization that deploys an ATM for the use of the public shall ensure that the ATM downtime due to the technical fault is not more than 72 hours consecutively. The help desk contacts are adequately displayed at ATM terminals. All ATM surcharges are fully disclosed to customers. The ATM is issued receipts where requested by a customer for all transactions except for the balance inquiry, stating at a minimum the amount withdrawn, the surcharges, date and time of the transaction. E-receipts, print, and screen display are eligible. The dispensing, deposit, and recycling component of the machine is in proper working condition. The dispensing component holds out the notes for collection of the user for a minimum of 20 seconds. There is an online monitoring mechanism to determine ATM vault cash levels. ATM vault replenishment is carried out as often as possible to avoid cash out. ATMs are not stuck with unfit notes. Availability of cash in ATMs at all time. Maintenance of ATM. A bank or independent organization that deploys an ATM for the use of the public shall ensure a notice is displayed at the ATM for planned maintenance period and disruption to service due to maintenance for public. An ATM maintenance register or log is kept properly. There's something I want to raise here. If you look at one of the things that the bankers should do, but they don't do it, because this thing now is a guideline issued by CBN. You know, if you know, especially Nigerians, if you go to our ATM sometimes, they will tell you we don't have money. It is here as one of the guidelines given to them that ATM must always have money 24 hours. But our bank, they don't do it. Our bank, as a Nigerian bank and African bank, has a lot of lacunas as far as I'm concerned. And they don't obey the law at all, except the one you notice that those agencies who will sanction them are available immediately. ATM security. Every ATM shall have cameras which shall view and record all persons using the machine and every activity at the ATM, including but not limited to card insertion, PIN entering, transaction selection, cash withdrawal, cash without card taking, etc. However, such cameras should not be able to record the key stroke of customers using the ATM. Where a surveillance camera is used, it should be kept secretly to avoid thieves removing or damaging or compromising it. Network used for transactions of ATM transaction must be demonstrated to have data confidentiality and integrity. Or ATM must be located in such manner that guarantees safety and security of users, confidentiality of their transaction. ATM should not be placed outside building unless such ATM is bolted to the floor and
surrounded by structures to prevent removal. Dispute resolution. In the event of irregularities in the account of an ATM customer arising from the use of card on ATM, flowing shall apply. All card holders' complaints should be treated within a minimum of 72 hours from the date of receipt of the complaint, or the day the customer complained of it. 72 hours. Take note. Liability shift. Where a non-Europay, MasterCard, and Visa, which is abbreviated as EMV, card is used on a non-EMV terminal and the fraud occurs, liability is on either the card issuer or the card holder. Proof has to be established on which party compromised card details. Where a non-EMV card is used on EMV terminal and fraud occurs, liability is on the card issuer. Where an EMV card is used on a non-EMV terminal and fraud occurs, liability is on the acquirer, sorry. Where an EMV card is used on an EMV terminal and fraud occurs, liability is on the card holder or the issuer. However, the onus is on the card holder to prove that their PIN had not been disclosed to a third party, willing or negligently. Where a hybrid card is used on a non-EMV terminal and fraud occurs, liability is on the acquirer. Where a hybrid card is used on an EMV terminal and the card treated as magnetic strive for authorization and fraud occurs, liability is on the card issuer. Where a hybrid card is used on an EMV terminal and card treated as EMV for authorization and fraud occurs, liability is on the card holder or the issuer. However, the onus is on the card holder to prove that his or her PIN had not been disclosed to a third party, willingly or negligently. We are moving to the regulatory monitoring. Any institution which operates an automated teller machine shall file an updated list such as ATMs, including the details, location of their addresses with banking and payment system departments of the Central Bank of Nigeria for compliance monitoring. The CBN shall conduct on-site snap checking of ATMs with a view to ensuring compliance with cash and service availability at the ATMs. Acquirers shall report volume of transactions on monthly basis to the Director, Banking and Payment System Department and CBN. Penalties. Sanctions in the form of monetary penalty or suspicion of or suspension of acquiring / processing service or services or both would be imposed on erring institution for failure to comply with any of the provisions of the ATM standard and guideline or any other relevant guideline issued by the CBN from time to time. This guideline was issued by Central Bank of Nigeria, April 2010. Conclusion, we've established banks in Nigeria involve compliance with different laws, and the requirement of those laws must be complied with before it can be said that a bank has been properly established. The conceptual clarification of the terms bank, banker, banking, business, and the bank customer has underpinned the nature of banking in Nigeria. By all indication, a bank or banker must be a body corporate. Banks. In doing so, it renders services to persons, both corporate and natural, who are referred to as customers. In summary, we'll fully discuss everything about banking system in Nigeria and banking system using a case study of America and Nigeria. Thank you very much. I'm done. Please, James, take over.
don't know if smart cost.
Yes.
Wasn't aware about the
So questions, if there's any question, ask, let me answer. If there is any question, ask, let me answer.
Okay, sir. Hello, are you hearing me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear vividly.
Yes. Okay. Even though the material we have is so easy to understand,
Yes.
can you explain me more about the right of the bank, please?
Okay, right of the bank.
Yeah.
Okay, want to know right of the bank, not okay. Noted.
Yes,
Any
yes.
other question?
No, it is only the right of the bank. I want you to explain me more about it.
Okay.
Yes.
That means you've understood their duties. It's just the right only.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Rights of the bank are: one, to charge reasonable interest on credit facilities granted to the customer and reasonable commission for some other services rendered. That's one. Two, to obtain reimbursement from the customer in respect of expenses incurred on that customer's behalf. Example, where a bank issues a mortgage property on behalf of the customer. Then three, to exercise right of set off as may be to his advantage and as may be permitted by law and by banking practice. Next one, to use money deposited by customers without recourse to or prior approval from the customer. Next one, to close the account after giving reasonable notice. Underline the word after giving reasonable notice. To recall overdraft permitted on current account when circumstances are such that it is the best course of action, and to expect immediate payment from the customer. To exercise the right of lien on its right properties in its possession, provided that there is an agreement that is consistent with the lien. Next one, to refuse payment of any check or other payment order, not property drawn, and even if property drawn, to refuse payment if there is any legal bar towards payments, whether or not the customer is aware or where funds in his account are insufficient. That is all. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that is all.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. If there's any other question, let me know. If there's none. Any other question?
Okay, yes. I have a question.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, so you made mention of, you gave us a very clear understanding of who a customer is and what the duties a bank owes to a customer, as well as the customer to the bank. So at what point in time does a person becomes a customer of a bank? I didn't actually get that point clearly. If
Okay,
you
that
can
means
clarify.
where you're missing is that you're missing what is customer. That is the question you just asked now. The customer, what customer means is once you open an account, are you getting me? During that opening of account, then you were issued a form to fill, and you fill the form and you sign, they accepted, and you are issued a number as your account number. Automatically, you're a customer to that bank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, a follow-up. What if sometimes we make a transaction with the bank without necessarily having an account with them? For instance, I'm just going to transfer money or I'm going to deposit a money in someone's account. Okay, in that instance, I need not have an account number with the bank. Am I not a customer at that point?
No, you're not a customer. You're not, as in, according to definition here, you're not a customer. I get it. You know, as in, let me just put it like this. You have many types of customer. Your customership is limited.
Okay.
As in, you know, with this customership you're talking about, it cannot sue. Did you get it? Did you get the person that will sue is the person you're depositing the money to. The person can now link you. So that is
all right. Clarification on the issue of types of customers, and I think this one answers my question perfectly. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other question? Hello.
Hi.
Okay. Is there another question?
Not me. I don't have any other question.
Okay. In the absence of question, please, James, if you are around, I beg, close down the lecture. Thank you. I appreciate everyone that came for the lecture. So the next one we'll be having, James will let us know, which is director of the program, will let us know the next lecture we're having. Then finally, the general lecture we'll have, I don't know the day, but before people conclude, I'll take your exam. You have to have lecture on study guide before this banking law students will take the exam. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Barrister Charles. We are so much grateful for the ample time and explanation that you've given to us on this particular area of law. And I think it's most of the time people mistaking some of these things that I've just explained, you know, and they are so much grateful for that opportunity. So I'll communicate with all trainees or persons who have registered for this particular course. The next step, now that you're done the exams, and then from the exams you get your certificate and all those kind of things. So thank you so much and have a very wonderful evening and afternoon or night, wherever you are watching us or listening to us from. Thank you.